We're good whenever you are, Cheyenne. Yeah, you're good? All right, let's go. Okay, good morning, everyone. We'll call the meeting to order this morning at 9:01 a.m. I have a few thank yous I want to run through first. I want to thank Cheyenne for helping us out today doing minutes and run the computer for us as our EA Candace is on a well-deserved holiday. I'd like to extend another thank you to staff and for council for hosting our two 60th anniversary events in Shaughnessy and McNally. They were both well attended and went off without a hitch. A big thank you to staff for that. Thought it was really well done. And as well, I'd like to thank the MD of Willow Creek, the Reeve of MD of Willow Creek. Reeve Sandberg presented us with a plaque at the Shaughnessy one. Congratulations on our 60th anniversary. So I just wanted to extend a thank you to Reeve and Council for that. I would also like to extend another thank you to Council and staff for the beginning of parade season. I believe we have 3 parades under our belt so far. Not quite halfway yet, but a big thank you to our drivers, planners, organizers, candy purchasers, and our council candy tossers for doing that. That's a great way to participate in some community events within the county. I want to acknowledge that on August the 12th, nominations will close for our by-election, and that's for Division 5. So if you are interested in running in that election, nominations do close on August the 12th. And I would also like to just look down to our agenda. We have 2 time commitments today. We have our 9 o'clock delegation to start off this morning, and then we have a public hearing scheduled for 10 a.m. So with that, we can move down into our formal agenda and the adoption of our agenda. Are there any additions, deletions, any issues arising with the agenda that's been presented? Morris.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could we put an addition on the agenda concerning dust control?
Where would you like that, Morris?
Well, it should be on the public works meeting.
Okay. We can do that. Any other additions, deletions to the agenda? Claus?
I'll move the agenda as amended.
Thank you, Claus. Claus is moved for the adoption of the agenda as amended. Any further discussion? I'll call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Before you have the County Council meeting minutes of July 18th, 2024. Are there any errors, omissions, any issues arising from the minutes? Mark.
Thank you, Reeve Campbell. I move the adoption of the County Council meeting minutes of July 18th, 2024.
Thank you, Mark. Mark has moved for the adoption of the County Council meeting minutes July 18th, 2024 as presented. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Moving down. As I noted, we have 1 delegation today, a 9 a.m. delegation. We have our Bursary Award winners with us today. We have Danika Hodge, Rayann Campmans, and Vanessa Moorhead with us today. So we do have your certificates and checks here. So I think what we'll do is we'll have a presentation inside. We'll present you with these, and then we'll all move outside and we'll take a group picture out by the sign. We did cover this over a bit in our last meeting, but I would just open it up to any members of the selection committee if you'd like to have any comments with our winners in the room today. Go ahead, Mark.
First, I'd just like to thank all of you for putting your applications in. It's something the county is pretty proud of. We've been working for the last number of years. Jen's been working really hard and trying to, we started with the 2, we're up to 3 scholarships now, recognizing the costs of going to school. Back in the day when I rode my horse to school, just kidding, but anyway, it was a lot cheaper back then. You could work for the summer and pay for your school, whereas now it's very costly. So we're really happy that we're able to support residents from the county for this. So again, thanks for putting your applications in. The applications are, it becomes tough every year for the committee because of the quality of the applications and the essays and the time you all put into it. So thanks for doing that. Best of luck in your post-secondary career. They're moving forward. Your high school was your good old days, and now you're moving into the next phase before, you know, the real world will slap you in the face and you'll be working. So anyway, thanks again for doing that, and congratulations.
Thank you, Mark. Anything else from the rest of council? Go ahead, Lauren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to say thank you very much for your community involvement. I think that means a great deal and goes a long ways into our selection. So you're all outstanding candidates, so thank you.
Thanks, Lauren. Go ahead, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I would reiterate that, and I want to thank you guys for putting your application in and taking the time to do that. It is, for me, one of the most rewarding things that I get to do on council outside of our normal duties, and it's you know, we appreciate the effort that you've put into your academics and your community involvement and your extracurricular activities, and I wish you all the success in the future.
Thank you, John. Okay, with that, let's present some Bursary awards. Morning, Hillary.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Council. We have 3 subdivision applications for County Council's consideration, acting as the subdivision authority. The first being subdivision application 2024-0-090 for Westbridge Farms, and I'll just pull it up on the map here for everybody to see. This application is for a first parcel out of a intact border section. They're requesting that a vacant 3-acre parcel be taken out of the northeast corner of the parcel fronting onto Range Road 22-3. This particular application does meet all the county subdivision criteria as the first parcel out of a quarter section, and there are no restrictions that would inhibit this particular subdivision from occurring. So with that, I will pass it off to Steve Hardy for the planning comments and the recommendation.
Good morning, everyone. This first application in front of you is to take a first subdivision out of the quarter section. As mentioned, it will be a vacant 3-acre parcel, triangular shape there in the northeast corner. The intent is to establish a future yard residence up in that corner. The parcel they're proposing is to angled on the southwest side to account for the irrigation pivot on the associated agricultural land. There is an existing approach already up at that northeast corner that connects to the east municipal road allowance. The applicants on their own are proposing to register a 10-meter wide access right-of-way along the parcel frontage there, just to use a single access to come in and then swing south to get into the agricultural land as well, along the frontage there. So they are proposing that they use on-site septic system for sewage treatment. They do have a water turnout already there from the water co-op at that location, which is how they propose for their future water. In the application itself, there are no issues or constraints present that would affect the subdivision. No abandoned gas wells, no confined feeding operations or close proximity that would affect it. So during the circulation of this application, there was no objections or concerns received. When I sent out the agenda report, we hadn't heard back from all the utility companies. We still haven't heard back from a couple, but to this point, no easements were requested from anybody. So this application does conform to your subdivision criteria as a vacant 3-acre parcel. It is the first subdivision out. And with no constraints or concerns apparent, have recommended to you approval based on the draft conditions there on the resolution, that taxes are paid up to date, development agreement be entered into if required. They need their final plan of survey. The fourth condition mentions the access right-of-way. You don't have to require that as part of the subdivision, but because they're proposing it, just to do everything at the same time at land titles, we place the condition on here that can all happen concurrently for them. And then the fifth was just the easement. At that point, we hadn't heard back from everybody, but with those conditions on there, I've recommended approval to you.
Thank you, Steve. I would open up to council for any questions or any discussion you might have. Go ahead, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the access to the other part, is that being done by way of easement, or is that being done by way of just a separation of the parcel?
It'll be an easement. They'll have a plan registered over top along with the associated easement, so it'll be registered on title that way. So like I said, they're just doing that for their own convenience, just to come in that way. That's just the way they would like it. But in accordance with the subdivision criterion policy, they don't have to do that. They just want to do that on their own. So.
Go ahead, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. All that being said, I would like to move that subdivision application 2024-0-090 be approved subject to the conditions as outlined in the draft resolution.
Thank you, John. Is there any further discussion? John has moved the recommendation that subdivision application 2024-0-090 be approved subject to the conditions as outlined in the draft resolution. Call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. Thanks, Steve. Thank you, Hillary. Item number 2, subdivision application 2024-0-093 Schooten, northwest quarter 211023 west of the 4. Hillary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this second subdivision is a first parcel out of an intact quarter section, being the northwest 211023 west of the 4th. On Township Roads 10-4 and Range Road 23-4. They wish to take out the northeast corner to as a 10 10-acre subdivision that follows along, it looks like a canal boundary. So it's kind of a cutoff from the remainder of the parcel. So as such, they are asking for a parcel above the 3-acre required, so that this would be a 10-acre parcel requested. So with that, I will pass it off to Steve for the rest of the planning comments and the recommendation.
For this next application in front of you, you are looking to take out a yard subdivision there in that northeast corner. They are proposing to delineate the parcel boundary on the the west and southwest side along a existing LNID irrigation and drainage ditch. The boundary will occur on the east side of the ditch, so that the canal ditch itself will remain on the larger agricultural piece and won't be part of the acreage title. It doesn't show up in the air photos, but they are establishing a yard in this northeast, and they have a moved on dwelling that was recently obtained a permit for it and located there. Along with some accessory buildings, some sheds, smaller buildings such as those type. So they are in the process of establishing that for a yard with the dwelling there. So water is provided by the water cooperative private cistern system, and sewage is managed on site by a new on-site septic system that was installed in 2021. Which is just located south of the dwelling and remain within the confines of the property once subdivided. In this area here, there are no abandoned or gas wells or confined feeding operations in location that would affect it. So as part of the circulation on this application, there were no concerns or objections received. Since I sent out the draft package and resolution to you, we have heard back from TELUS. They have no concerns or request of easement. So this application does conform with the county subdivision criteria. As a first parcel out of this subdivision, out of the quarter section. With the residents there being in place and using the outer east side of the canal to delineate the property, it can comply with the policy to be 10 acres or less in size, and they obviously exceed the 2-acre minimum that's required. So with that, as the first subdivision out and no apparent constraints or issues apparent with it, I have recommended approval to you. On this one, it would be with the 5 conditions as well. That the taxes paid up to date, development agreement be entered into if required. The third stipulates that the final plan or survey shall delineate the parcel boundary being situated on the north and east side of the irrigation drainage ditch, so that the ditch entirely remains on the remnant agricultural title and not part of the yard. And then they have to provide a final plan of survey to illustrate such that the parcel does not exceed 10 acres. And then the fifth is just the typical easement requirement. So on that basis of those 5 conditions, I recommend approval to you on this application as well.
Thanks, Steve. I would open it up to council for any questions or discussion you might have on subdivision application 2024-0-093. Mark and then John.
I was just gonna say, it's, it makes sense and seems to be pretty straightforward, so I would just make the recommendation, or make the motion that subdivision application 2024-0-093 be approved, subject to the conditions as outlined in the draft resolution.
Thank you, Mark. Is there any further discussion? John, did you have anything, or were you gonna? Okay. So Mark has moved the recommendation that subdivision application 2024-0-093 be approved subject to the conditions as outlined in the draft resolution. Is there any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thanks, Steve. Thank you, Hillary. And we have one final subdivision application for today. Item 3 under subdivision applications, number 2024-0-096, R2K Farms, Northwest Quarter, 34,919 west of the 4.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This third and final subdivision is to also subdivide out a first parcel out of an intact quarter section, being the Northwest 34,919 west of the 4th. This parcel is located on Township Road 10-0, which is to the north and west of the hamlet of Chin. They are requesting a 3.16 acre parcel out of the quarter section. We're an existing yard, as you can kind of see the yard on the county's ortho photo. So they wish to take out a part of that to subdivide out the existing residence. With that, I will pass it off to Steve for the rest of the planning comments and the recommendation.
So this is the last application in front of you, and like the previous two, which was a vacant and a fairly new yard, this application is actually for a long-established farmyard up at this location, where they're looking to subdivide out a 3.16 acre parcel there up by the road allowance on the north side. They're looking to just to subdivide out the main yard area with the residence. As you can see in the photo there, there is a Quonset shop building and several other farm buildings in the southwest or east corner, I should say, of the proposed yard, that they want to remain on the agricultural portion of the title and not be part of the residential yard part. So the way the yard, the boundaries proposed there is it will jog around those and keep those on the quarter section remnant title. The existing yard, they do have on-site sewage system situated south of the dwelling that will be captured and is within the confines of the residential 3.16 acres being subdivided. Their yard as well, it already is connected to the Lethbridge Rural Water Association, but they feed into a private cistern system. And obviously there they already have an approach into place with access on the north side to the county road allowance. And looking at some of the other review criteria and some of the provincial requirements, there are no abandoned gas wells or historical resources, those types of things in this area. In regards to confined feeding or operations, the closest operation is located to the west. There's a beef operation that requires an MDS of 303 meters, and over 588 meters exists to the dwelling there. So it well exceeds the required minimum distance that would be applied. So as part of this application, there were no concerns or easements requested. Since I sent the package out, we have heard back from 2 additional utilities, and that's ATCO and TELUS, and they do not require an easement and have no concerns. And as well, the SMRAD also commented on it. They have no concerns and just referred to if the applicants want a irrigable unit there of water for the yard. So with that, it does comply to your policies for an existing yard subdivision. The 3.16 acre yard size complies. So I have recommended approval to you, just with the standard conditions of taxes being paid up to date, development agreement be entered if required, that they submit their final plan of survey based on an approval they receive, and that any easements required by utility companies be established. And in this case, we've heard back from them all now, and actually none are required. So,
Awesome. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Hillary. I would open it up to council for any questions or discussion you might have. Go ahead, Lauren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So will they share the same approach for the acreage and this new?
yeah, if you zoom there, they got.
It looks like they have a couple of additional approaches into the agricultural lands, Councillor Hickey, both on the east and the west sides of there. So I'd say, and there it looks like
East
there's
on the
and there's
trees, yeah.
another
Yeah.
approach on the east side of the
Okay.
tree belt
Yeah.
there. So yes, they would have separate approaches.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Lauren.
I would move subdivision application 20-24-0 096. I think I missed the number there.
096, yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah, you're good.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
Okay, thank you, Lauren. Lauren has moved the recommendation that subdivision application 2024-0-096 be approved subject to the conditions as outlined in the draft resolution. Is there any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Hillary. We move down in our agenda. Why don't we slide down to department reports? Start at G1, Development and Infrastructure, G1.1, Bylaw 24-014, to redesignate a portion of the Northwest 34-10-21 West 4 from urban fringe to business light industrial. First reading. Hillary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is first reading for Bylaw 24-014. The applicant has, county has received an application to rezone a 5.7 acre area from urban fringe to business light industrial. The intent of the rezoning is to allow for, obviously, business light industrial uses to be permitted on that particular portion of the property. Currently, those businesses that have a valid development permit were grandfathered in this particular area, as the county used to allow for isolated industrial uses within the urban fringe district. That was taken out in 2013. The applicant does desire to have some other businesses moving into those 3 buildings where the 5.7 acres would cover, and as such they have submitted this application to do so. I will note that this does comply to the intermunicipal development plan between the Lethbridge County and the town of Picture Butte that identifies this particular area for highway commercial / light industrial uses. And in conversations with the town, they have expressed no concerns with regards to this application, as they feel it does adhere to the plan in place. So with that, I have recommended that first reading of the bylaw be read by County Council today. And this application, when we do the circulation to the adjacent landowners, we'll present any feedback and any policy any policy considerations from our municipal development plan will be presented to County Council at the public hearing. With that, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Hillary. I would open it up for any discussion you might have. Go ahead, Klaus.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I got this correct, that was used as light industrial before already. Is that correct?
That's correct. It was historically used as such, but the zoning was never in place to allow some of those uses to occur. So we're trying to bring this property back into compliance, essentially. So I'll just bring up the map that I have here.
Go ahead, Klaus.
Okay, then I'll move that the bylaw 20-014 be read the first time.
Thank you, Klaus. Klaus has moved the recommendation that bylaw 24-014 be read for a first time. Is there any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. Thank you, Hillary.
Thank you.
Item G1.2, bylaw 23-022, land use bylaw amendment, urban fringe to group country residential and direct control. Second reading. Hillary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This particular bylaw was read for a first time and had the public hearing at the last council meeting being July 18th, whereby the area structure plan that supported this rezoning application was approved. At the July 18th meeting, County Council requested that the second reading be tabled until such time that administration could bring back the some amendments to the proposed direct control. Specifically, County Council requested that they be the deciding authority on discretionary uses and waivers for the direct control portion of the rezoning application. And as such, I have drafted some amendments to the direct control to outline that, and I have included them in your agenda package. I did highlight them so that they would be clearer to see where those changes were made. And I did notice one error in the uses. There was 2 mentions of wind energy conversion systems, so I took out one. Just so you know, that's why that one was scratched out. So I'll just scroll down to the main part where the delegation authority is. So under the delegation of authority, I did amend that so that the development authority from county administration side would make decisions on permitted uses only, and that county council would decide on development permit applications for discretionary uses and waivers. So that's where that highlighted section was amended as per county council's direction. So with that, with those amendments made, I have recommended that second and third reading of bylaw 23-0222 be read a second and a third time. I'll put it back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Hillary. I would open up to council for any questions or discussion you might have. Go ahead, Lauren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, and this may not be the right place to ask, but at the hearing that day, there was a lot of talk about the road going in and out and having two different widths. So is there anything to do with this, or does that come at a later date, or when would that be addressed?
So with regards to the road, so with the approval of the area structure plan, it did state in that plan that the road would be, the new extension to the north would be a paved portion done by Mr. Frake, as he is the developer, and that the remainder of the road, which is gravel, if that would be part of a local improvement levy, that would be paid for by all of the residents, so they would have to make a petition to county council to be able to do that. Devin can probably speak to the local improvement levy if you want more information on that, but that's how in my opinion, that we left that particular situation, is that if the area structure plan said that's what was going to happen in terms of what was going to happen with the road, we can address it. It'll come back probably again to council during the subdivision, whereby we'll probably, it'll show kind of the new extension of the road, and then the details can be discussed a little bit further, but that's kind of where it is. So there is another step to this, which would be the subdivision application, where they would show the new, where the extension of the road would go, and if council does approve that subdivision, we would enter into a development agreement to address infrastructure requirements. I hope that answers your question, Councillor Hickey.
Well, I guess it seems kind of odd that we wouldn't address the issue of having the same width the road. I mean, the north end is gonna have less traffic than the other part. It just seems like we should take care of it now.
Councillor Hickey, through the chair, it wouldn't be through the rezoning application that we would deal with the road issue. It would be at the subdivision stage, though, that if you wanted to address that, that could be a condition on the subdivision that the road width be looked at. If they were going to pave the road, they would all have to be the same width, is my understanding. So perhaps Devin might be able to weigh in on the road width variances in that particular area. I'll pull up the map too.
Yeah, so the road width, you are correct. The newly constructed, the road that will be constructed will be a bit wider than the existing. The existing is about 7 meters wide. Your typical lane widths are 3.5 meters wide. So if you look at lane widths, I mean, if we require the developer to paint roadway lines, which we may not, but your lane width would still be the same. You just have extra shoulder, if that makes sense, on the newly paved portion. So we still have our standard lane width there. It's just the new asphalt past the gravel will have that bit of extra room on the shoulder.
John, you had your hand up.
I did, yeah. I think that it was kind of answered, but I believe that any discussion about the road would be better suited at the subdivision and the development permit versus what we're talking about here is just changing the land use bylaw. Right? Which really doesn't deal with the specifics of what's going to be there. When we're changing the land use bylaw, that's just changing what they can do for the subdivision. But if that's something that we want to address at the time of the subdivision, that's something that we should be bringing up then.
Anything? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Klaus.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, this, it's gonna be, the other part of the road is gonna be paved eventually. Do all the other members of with the acreage there, do they all have to approve that they want that done? Or, because I mean, it's done by the local improvement grant that they're gonna get, but is everything covered under there? Or do they, a certain amount of money comes from them that they would have to pay?
So with regards to the local improvement levy, all the benefiting, how it works is all the benefiting landowners contribute to that, to the payment of that particular levy. So everybody who would use that road to get into the subdivision, which would be all of the residents in the Pater subdivision, so that area in orange there, they would all benefit from that road being paved, so they would all contribute to that. And typically it's been done on a per acreage basis, but it could also be done on a frontage basis. There's a couple different mechanisms for the local improvement to be applied.
Good, Klaus.
But with that said, before we can approve that, don't we have to know if everybody would be in favor of that? Because otherwise, we probably could not move this second reading.
No, I would say that, Councillor Vanderveen, through the chair, that they're two separate issues. The road doesn't have to be paved, essentially. There's nothing saying that the county has, like, that they have to pave the road. It's just, it's this particular subdivision has been developed in a very ad hoc basis historically, and so we have a bit of a mishmash of road widths and road surfaces. So by approving the rezoning, you're not necessarily changing it. The road is still a road that they can use. If they choose to want to have that paved surface, they would come back to the county with that petition to do the local improvement levy, and then they could proceed with that. With more landowners on board, with Mr. Frake's development, the odds of that being distributed more equitably between them is probably, it'll probably be more desirable to the rest of the group. There'll probably be a lesser cost to that per person or per landowner. So I feel like there is probably a lot more success by approving this particular rezoning and probably subsequent subdivision to that road being actually paved in the future. So that would be kind of my opinion on that.
Good, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move that bylaw 23-022, land use bylaw amendment, urban fringe to group country residential and direct control be read a second time as amended.
Thank you, John. John has moved the first recommendation that bylaw 23-022, land use bylaw amendment, urban fringe to group country residential and direct control be read a second time as amended. Is there any further discussion? Go ahead, Lauren.
Thank you. So then, just to make sure I understand this correctly, the paved part you're asking for the new part, is it part of this, what we're passing today?
That would come as part of the subdivision application.
So it's not part of what's
No,
happening today?
that is
Thank
correct.
you.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? I will call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. Our second recommendation for third reading. John?
Oh, mic's still on. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move the bylaw 23-022, land use bylaw amendment, urban fringe to group country residential and direct control be read a third time.
Thank you, John. John has moved the bylaw 23-022, land use bylaw amendment, urban fringe to group country residential and direct control be read for a third time. Is there any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you, Hillary.
Thank you.
We can move down in our department reports. We have one more remaining. Item G1.3, bulk water fill access control and monitor system upgrade. Morning, Devin.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Council. So the county's existing bulk water fill stations, which I'm sure all of you have used in the past, are outfitted with a CompuTrol water management system, which is used to manage and invoice customers for the purchase of bulk water. The system includes PC hardware and software at each fill station and modems to transmit consumption data to our office to then in turn bill our customers. The system is quite outdated. It is over 20 years old, and issues have arose with utility invoicing, reporting, and functionality of the fill stations. The existing system does require significant staff resources for utility billing and troubleshooting the system. A new access control and monitoring system is required to ensure reliable access to our fill stations and to ensure accurate and efficient billing. The new system will also have the ability to accept credit card payments directly at the fill station and also has the option to pre-purchase water using a key fob similar to what we do right now. We are in the process of determining which payment options will provide the best level of service to our residents, while also ensuring adequate controls are in place to ensure responsible usage of the fill stations. As I mentioned, the existing system is quite old. It runs on a Windows 95 operating system, which is very outdated, and there is no software support available for that system. We have had multiple occurrences of software and hardware failures arising. Multiple occurrences of software and hardware failures arising has required extensive resources from the utility, administration, and IT departments to maintain its functionality. Obtaining replacement parts is very challenging due to the age of the system, and we have had to do temporary Band-Aid fixes just to maintain functionality. Field staff are spending on average 3 to 4 days per month just troubleshooting the system. And that's on average. Some months are better, some months are worse, but they are spending a significant amount of time trying to troubleshoot that system. As well, the billing process is quite inefficient, with our admin staff spending on average about 6 days per month manually entering data to bill customers. I know Amanda spends a significant amount of her time doing that. And in July, she actually spent about 14 days to reconcile billing due to some major issues with the system. Customers were also getting frustrated as some fill stations like Monarch, Turin, and Iron Springs were inoperable for weeks at a time, and irregularities with customer billing was causing confusion. Now, we have put some messaging on our website regarding that utility billing, and we are still working on getting that back to regular occurring monthly invoicing, but we are still having some issues with that system. So with that, we are looking at obviously different providers to put in a different system, and this is everything from the fob swipe pad on the outside of the building to the hardware inside of the building to the network transmission devices that then send that data to our office, so we can then collect that and bill utility invoice or bill our customers monthly. The recommendation before you today is that County Council approve the bulk water fill access and monitor control upgrade project with a budget of $200,000 funded from the utility reserve. We are coming before you today instead of during regular budget deliberations, just due to the timelines required to order this equipment and get it installed and maintain functionality of our water fill stations. We thought it was best to bring it before you today instead of waiting for the budget to be approved in December and then in January get going on this. So with that, I will pass it back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Devin. You answered my first question as to why now and not budget. Would this item have been would have a replacement schedule, and is this a surprise, I guess, or do we see this coming, or was this in a schedule and we moved up a schedule, or how would you characterize that?
It was not in a schedule. When Sue was in Picture Butte, she would handle these. She would work with Darren and handle these issues with the fill stations and keep them going. We became aware of it probably back spring this year, maybe. I can't remember the exact month, but we became aware of the ongoing issues that have occurred with this system. So short answer, no, it was not in the schedule to be replaced this year. However, when we do replace this system, we will then put it into our asset management program with the life cycle and plan for that replacement in the future.
Awesome. Thank you, Devin. I know the frustration of as a person that hauls water, the frustration of getting to a water station, you get there and there's a closed or not functioning sign. So I know the frustration, and I've heard it loud and clear, and as well on the billing side with some of those irregularities, heard those frustrations as well, and getting bills that from past months and some just irregularities like you said. So appreciate that we're addressing that. So thank you. Clausen?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, how many fill stations are there that have to get all this the meters and stuff, everything new? And how much time do you think you would save for people doing all the extra work that had to be done for the old system?
So we currently have 7 fill stations. We have the 43rd Street North, Colehurst, Diamond City, Iron Springs, Lethbridge Airport, Monarch, and Turin. Regarding how much time we're gonna save, since we haven't necessarily selected a system, I can't give you a definitive, we're gonna save X amount of time. But the system that we're gonna be looking at, we wanna find something quite a bit more automated where we just receive that data and it's just simply inputting it into an invoice and sending that out to the customer. So because the system is so outdated and so old, it is very clunky and inefficient.
Good Lord.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as you've already mentioned, Corey, I've been to the airport water fill station and had to phone in and bother somebody on Saturday to actually figure out how to make it work. And I know lots of people have done the same thing. So I'm just wondering about the credit card system. I think overall that probably would be the best one. Then you don't have to worry about billing people on anything. But how do you control who buys the water? Because we have had an issue of, you know, the fracking people getting water.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether that's a problem when if you have that kind of system. Thank you.
Oh.
Yeah, Councillor Hickey through the chair. So that's exactly the internal conversations that we're having right now because of some of those concerns. We are in discussions with a vendor, and it would be the same vendor that we supported the upgrade in the Nobleford water station. So they have some experiences with that has given us some confidence. They have the credit card system there, which for those reasons has worked really, really well. However, our biggest concern with our water licensing with utilization is that we don't have that control. So the vendor has recommended that we go with the fob system, and people can preload their fobs, so set those up. So the initial staff requirement to transition systems, there's probably not, if we go that direction, there's probably not a significant time saving for the first few months. And then once that system is operational, people can utilize their credit cards or whatever payment method they want to upload those fobs. So we think that is for sure the direction that we want to go. And then what we've talked about is having the future optionality for the credit cards to see if we get this up and running. Do we want to do the credit cards? Do we want to do them in specific locations, in some other locations? From a level of service standpoint, we like that option. From a paying the fees, we now have to distribute the credit card fees in the utility rates, which becomes a challenge in itself as well to determine how many people are paying with credit cards, so we can establish that from a cost recovery standpoint. And then how do we have and maintain those controls on who uses the water station? So we're not totally determined on what the best course forward is. And that is why we've put forward the up to $200,000 request. We have some cost estimates, but depending on the system that we go with, it will be less than that, but how much less than that, we're not able to determine until we land on a final payment system.
Quick class.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In order to be able to use the water fill station, do you have to be a taxpayer of the county?
No.
John, did you have your hand? I did. Okay, Mark, go ahead.
Just around the credit card thing, I've watched it with some of the petroleum agencies when they switched over to probably put credit cards into their system, like with UFA, for example. And it is a convenience, but then like you say, there's a cost. So if we incorporate that into our payment, that's going to increase the cost. The other thing is with the fobs. I think if everybody has a fob, anybody that's registered as a fob, and if they're in violation, you just cancel their fob. They don't get water. So that gives us control over who gets water or if they get water. So the invoicing piece, I think a lot of it was just the inconveniences when we switched over and the invoices were delayed, or else if you had an automatic withdrawal or payment plan, and that wasn't working. It was all the just technical stuff that we could work on. But the fob thing and just having that updated, it seems to gives us control. I guess that's the balance, is finding where we have control of who's getting our water and how much they get too. That's the other piece. So.
Yeah,
John,
you bet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What I'm seeing and reading from this, and maybe you can clarify for me, is regardless of what system we actually finally land on, whether it's a credit card system or a fob system, the update for this is long overdue, and pretty much necessary to reduce a significant amount of labor trying to reconcile what we have currently, correct?
Correct, to reduce that time spent and to reduce downtime of fill stations as well.
Okay, so based on that, then I would like to move that county council approve a bulk water fill access monitoring control upgrade project with a budget of up to $200,000 funded from the utility reserve.
Thank you, John. John has moved the recommendation that county council approve the bulk water fill access and monitor control upgrade project with a budget of up to $200,000 funded from the utility reserve. Are there any further questions or discussion? Not, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you, Devin.
Thank you, council.
Thank you, Cole. That brings us to 9:55. We have a 10 a.m. public hearing, so why don't we take a short recess? Call a meeting back to order at 10:02 a.m. this morning. We have one public hearing today. Public hearing for Bylaw 24-012 to redesignate a plan 1410983 Block 1 Lot 2 from direct control, Bylaw 1397 to direct control. So with that, we will recess our public meeting, and I would entertain a motion to open a public hearing. Claus. Claus has moved to open a public hearing for Bylaw 24-012 at 10:03 this morning. Is there any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. We are here today to hold a public hearing for Bylaw 24-012, redesignate a plan 1410983 Block 1 Lot 2 from direct control to from direct control Bylaw 13. Sorry, I'm reading that wrong. Yeah, no, from direct control Bylaw 1397 to direct control. The public hearing is being held pursuant to the Municipal Government Act as amended. The public hearing is being live streamed via the county's YouTube page. And with that, I would declare the public hearing for Bylaw 24-012 now officially open. I will now ask the Manager of Planning and Development to review the nature of the hearing and provide an overview of what is being proposed. Hillary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Council. So this public hearing is for Bylaw 24-012, which is a proposal to amend or to replace the existing direct control, which would be Bylaw 1397, with a new direct control noted as Bylaw 24-012. The applicant has, in discussions with the applicant, they have requested to amend or replace this direct control so that they can allow a different business to run on the property, specifically machinery and equipment sales, rental, and service, and to also allow for dwellings to locate on this particular property. As they say, there is a desire to possibly have a residence here in the future, kind of like a larger scale home occupation. The proposed direct control also proposes, which is different than the original, to allow for a future subdivision of the 10-acre parcel into 2 5-acre parcels. The application was circulated to all the county departments and external agencies for review. No comments or concerns were received from any of the agencies circulated, which included Alberta Transportation and Economic Corridors, W Gas Co-op, which is the gas provider for this particular area, TELUS, or Fortis. In addition, I will note that in preliminary discussions with the applicant, I did advise them to discuss his proposal with the adjacent landowners just to ensure that they are well aware of his intentions. He has done that. He expressed that he had talked to all of the adjacent landowners and acreages in that particular area, and he had no concerns arising from those discussions. With regards to the Lethbridge County Administration, we reviewed the application proposed with the new direct control and the uses allowed, and I have the following comments to provide. The Industrial Commercial Land Use Strategy, Policy 5.3.1, and the Municipal Development Plan, Policy 10.21, provide criteria for the approval of isolated commercial industrial uses in proximity to highways, and also if they are compatible with the adjacent uses, and in proximity and have access to utilities and services. The proposed rezoning application is in compliance with the siting criteria. As you can tell from the orthophoto up on the screen, the proposed location is in between 2 highway corridors, so being 845 on the east and Highway 4 to the west. And there is obviously services utility services available in the area for them to expand or to locate in this particular area. The nature of the business and the limited uses as described in the direct control ensure that there'll be no negative impacts to adjacent properties, and the provision for the subdivision of the 10-acre parcel into 2 5 acres is in compliance with the county size requirements for parcels, as they will be over the 2-acre minimum. The subdivision would not materially affect the area in terms of additional traffic or nuisance to the adjacent property owners. The addition of the residential uses to the direct control will complement the adjacent residential development, so making it a little bit more residential in character than industrial. while still allowing some of that light commercial or light industrial uses as proposed by the applicant. A notice of this application was submitted in the July 9th and 16th editions of the Sunny South News. No comments or concerns were submitted to the county to date. So there was no concerns expressed from the adjacent landowners. I have provided in my report a couple of options if council chooses to want some options with regards to this particular application. County council could refuse the rezoning application, although from an administrative perspective, the proposed uses, as I mentioned, are limited in nature and would not materially impact the adjacent landowners, nor have any concerns been expressed by the adjacent landowners. Option 2, County Council may amend the direct control by amending the proposed uses and opportunities for subdivisions if they feel there's merit to either of those options available. But once again, we didn't hear any concerns from any of the external agencies or adjacent landowners. And in keeping with what was proposed there originally, administration is of the opinion that this proposed rezoning will have negligible impact to the adjacent landowners or the use on the road. So with that, that concludes my report, Mr. Chairman. I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Hillary. This is council's opportunity to receive input from the public. Those making presentations are asked to state their name and review their points. We ask that you refrain from asking questions to council. The intention of the public hearing is not to debate or defend the contents of the bylaw or the position which individual councillors may have on the bylaw. Questions asked of a councillor by a presenter may be ruled out of order. Presentations to council will start with the applicant who has made a submission, followed by any other persons wishing to comment on the proposal. Please keep your comments to the point. After each speaker, members of council will be permitted to ask questions of the presenter to clarify any details. No debating or questions from the floor will be allowed. With that, I would invite the applicant who has submitted the request, if they would like to speak. More than welcome to at this time.
Thank you, Chairman and Councilman. My name is Dale Mellon. I own and operate Ken Deal Equipment. We are a family-owned business with my son and my brother. We have been currently operating out of Foremost the last 5 years, and we needed a change. Our commute was an hour each way, and sometimes we had multiple vehicles down there every day. So that was the decision to buy this building. We buy and sell farm equipment, but mainly focus on tractors. We detail them, fix any problems with them, and resell them. We're not a huge company, so our traffic is minimal. A busy week for us might be 4 to 5 semis bringing tractors, taking tractors. In the slower times, we might go a month without seeing a truck. So yeah, like I say, our footprint is fairly minimal. We've never had any complaints or issues while running the business in Foremost. We do what we can to help our neighbors and keep good relationships with them. Growing up in a small town, it was always important for me to be a good neighbor, and that will not change. We are looking for rezoning so we can operate our business with a storefront at this location, while being able to repair the tractors as well. We have also asked to divide our 10 acres into 2 5-acre parcels so that one day my son might have the opportunity to have a house and yard next to the shop. The plan is that my son will take over the business one day and continue to keep it a family-owned operation. I appreciate the opportunity to speak here today. I would like to thank Hillary as well. She's been very helpful in the application process, and we had great communication. So, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from council at this time? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I would open up the floor. Are there any others interested in speaking? I see no one else in the audience. I will move right down. With that, we can resume our public meeting. So I entertain a motion to close the public hearing for bylaw 24-012. Lauren?
I would move to close the public hearing for bylaw 24-01. Whoop, that's the wrong one, sorry. Better get the right one.
24-012.
Yeah, 24-012.
Thank you, Lauren. Lauren has moved to close the public hearing for bylaw 24-012. Is there any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. A few pages on this one. Thank you, Hillary. Did you have anything further at this time, Hillary?
No, I don't have anything further to add, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I would open up to council. How would you like to proceed? I got John and Lauren, so.
Go ahead.
I would like to move that we read bylaw 24-012 for a second time.
Thank you, Lauren. Lauren has moved that bylaw 24-012 be read for a second time. Is there any further discussion? I'll call a question. Those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. John?
I'd like to move the bylaw 24-012 be read a third time.
Thank you, John. John has moved third reading of bylaw 24-012. Is there any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. Thank you.
Great. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Mr. Chairman. Thank you, council.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You bet. Just a comment, if I may. I am a bit of a Kijiji addict.
Okay.
I would say you have some of the nicest tractors in southern Alberta
Okay,
on a
good.
regular basis.
I like
So,
to hear that. That's
What they are, John Hughes?
and as a resident of Township Road 80, just down the road a few miles, I drive by that property daily. So, looking forward to having someone there that's gonna take care of it and treat it the way it deserves to be treated.
Yeah,
So,
we'll sell on your tractor.
thank you.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thanks, Hillary.
We can move down. Our addition for today, G4 operations, discussion on dust control. And I would open the floor up to Councillor Zeenstra. Morris?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Since the restrictions of dust control has been put in place because of the situation we're in, it's been come up several times with a few people down there, and the opinion of people is the dust control should stay in place because it is a big safety factor. Especially some of the areas with the heavy feedlot operations or whatever down there. That's, I want to bring this forward and see what the management and council looks.
Could you clarify, Morris, what you meant when you say that the restrictions or the changes with dust control?
Well, for what I understand down there is management stopped all dust control in the county because of the health situation. Is that what it is? No.
Thank you, Councillor Zeenstra, through the chair. So, no, we continue to apply dust control. We've actually reapplied a lot of dust control from last year as we had some issues with the product that we received. So not only did we do the cost share, the 50-50 split this year with the residents that applied for the dust control program, so it did cost residents financially to receive dust control, but we watered and applied dust control for all of those residences. Any of those that had quality issues have been reapplied, and we've had a much greater success with dust control this year than we have in past years, and we've seen significant reduction in dust amounts for the locations where dust control has been applied.
That's, if I may, that's great to hear, for what I was told by two people down there, that, yeah, the restricted dust control because of the situation or whatever, and they were kind of upset about it because they paid their amount for the dust control. So I think there's just
Thank you, Councillor Zeenstra. Yeah, we've received a number of complaints as well, and we've done some assessments. It is noticeable, the reduction in dust where the dust control has been applied. I think the dust in general has been exacerbated by how dry the weather is this year and how hot it is, as well by the amount of general economic activity that's occurring in Lethbridge County. So there's a lot of hauling occurring, there's a lot of construction occurring, there's a lot of trucks, and so we have worked specifically with certain operators under their development application to say that they need to water if they're doing a major haul, or in some situations where they've actually offered to apply additional dust control to extend the area for some residences that are grossly affected by the amount of traffic on those roads. It is difficult. When we look at our budgets, we have about $400,000 in expense related to dust control. So we budget about $800,000 for 2024, with that being a approximately 50% cost share between the residents and the county for the program. And so for us to do additional miles, it is extremely costly, and that would come down to a discussion on level of service and budget and what those parameters would be for those businesses. And it is also quite subjective from a resident standpoint, where we sometimes receive complaints that it is very average or below average traffic volumes and traffic types. And there are other times where we receive those complaints and it's significant volume and heavy traffic types. And so same complaint, but very different impact to the residences that are there and the traffic on those roads. So it becomes hard to assess.
Well, thank you for that. That kind of clears that up to this understanding some of the people have, I guess. I'll relay that message back to them.
Go ahead, John.
Thank you. If I may just add to that, I've had a couple of situations in past years where I've had ratepayers in my division call in and complain about the dust control and dust on the roads. And when we drilled down into what the actual situation was there, is that they didn't want to actually pay for the dust control. They wanted the county to put the dust control on without having any cost to the individual ratepayers, which is not really how our program has worked traditionally in the past. So that may be part of it, that, you know, we've got ratepayers out there that maybe have in the past, called in and complained about the dust, and then somebody has gone out and applied some dust control on that area without actually billing it to the ratepayer.
Go ahead, Lauren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I certainly think it depends on the amount of activity you have on your road as to how much control you're gonna get. But I certainly have found that after a little bit of rain, that stuff comes back to life pretty handily. So if, maybe if you were to take it upon yourself and put just a sprinkle of water on it, it would help a lot.
Quite cool.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One thing that we have identified as an opportunity for us going forward is our communication of the dust suppression program. So while it's readily available, it's on our website, and we send out mail-outs. We, in the past, have sent out mail-outs to those that have applied for dust control previously, and not necessarily to every resident within Lethbridge County. So there's other mechanisms for them to apply for the program or to be aware of the program, but I think that's something that is a opportunity of improvement for administration, to have a broader awareness of the dust suppression, what it entails, and how to access that. So that is something that we're looking at for the next season as well.
Thank you. Anything else on this one? Yeah, go ahead, Klassen.
It's not dust control, it's the other way around. Am I allowed to ask my question?
Go right ahead.
Okay. This is for mud on the road. And that, I had a couple of calls on that one, that it starts raining and people just keep on doing what they're doing in the field and driving on the gravel roads. Do we have anything in place that we can say that, you can't do that? because apparently it does wreck our roads and everything like that, yeah, and then the graders later have to come and try to push it off, and, you know, and then kind of our gravel goes away with it too.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Vanderveen. I'm going to assume that those are old complaints with the lack of rain we've received, but we have this come up quite frequently and had a number of calls this spring. There's a variety of things that we can do. Sometimes the process is a little bit slower than those who are calling to complain would like. So we do an assessment. There are some situations where there is no ability to mitigate some mud onto the road just by nature of the business and traffic and everything else. But it really is case by case. Is we would do an assessment if it's excessive, if it creates driving concern conditions, if it is repeated, and if it is from a specific business that is operating under a development permit and what the terms of that permit are. There has been some situations this spring where we issued a stop order on a particular property after working with the individual that if they wanted to continue to run their operations, they needed to apply for a different development permit, and the terms of that permit would entail some graveling and mitigating the transmission of mud on the road. So it really depends on the situation. If it's excessive and frequent, we may send out our bylaw enforcement or our CPO rather to assess and determine what we can do to mitigate it. Really is case by case, where it is, how much it is, and what the frequency is. It's a tough one to regulate just with the number of roads that we have and the number of gravel roads we have.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I hear some of these things, and we had a director of public works here a few years back down there, and when we're doing certain things, and we're in a farming community down there, and I don't care if it's silver beets or potatoes or whatever, and when they need to be done and to be harvested, and in certain conditions sometimes, what you have in the fields, you still have to close the roads. And I think that's just one of the things we're gonna have to, not saying put up with COVID, but I mean, COVID down there, some of the farmers, but were doing it, and we were part of it down there, the meats down there. We tried to keep it as clean as possible, and even, you know, when that was against the two down there, and we all have front end loaders or blades on the tractors or whatever, and we did a pretty good job. But certain things in a farming community, you're gonna have to accept what's happening because of the situation, and I think we can work with that.
I just want to caution, we're kind of veering a bit here, but I'll let you close the clause if you like.
My issue was not with what you're talking about, Morris, like if the crops
Oh,
have
I
to get
don't know
off.
what you're talking
No,
about.
but it's more like keep on spreading manure when it's just really bad in the field. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's
So
a
with
different
that,
situation,
if people have some complaints, what should they do? Who do they contact, and?
Call their division counselor? No. Sorry.
That has happened
They
already.
could please redirect them to the county main line, and depending on the situation, what other calls we're receiving and how we're going to assess, it will be routed to the appropriate party from there.
Thank you, Cole. Thank you, Morris. Thank you, council. I think you nailed it on the head, Cole. I think, I know as many of you do, I receive quite a few complaints around dust and what we can do about that, and I think that you nailed it on the head. As we grow as a county and as a community, and we have more economic activity, and we're continuing to grow and build, it means more activity, and more activity in some cases means more dust. So it does come with progress and our growth, and it is an unfortunate side effect that I think some people are being disproportionately affected by. But the reality is too, is we have predominantly gravel roads, and we live in a predominantly dry climate that is conducive to dust. So it is a balancing act. So I do appreciate the service we provide, and I do appreciate the council's willingness to continue to subsidize that program, and I'm sure we'll have a further discussion of that at budget time. So with that, we can move on. I believe we have come to the end of our public meeting. We have 2 closed session items today. Item one, Southern Regional Stormwater Drainage Committee, FOIP Section 21 disclosure harmful to intergovernmental relations, and the second, a CAO report, FOIP Section 21 disclosure harmful to intergovernmental relations as well. So with that, I would entertain a motion to enter closed session. Okay, thank you. We will, if we could get a motion to come out of a closed session.
Move so.
Morse moved to come out of the closed session at 11:02 a.m. this morning. Any discussion? I'll call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Arising from our closed session, item 1, I believe we have 2 proposed motions. Throw to you. I'm sorry. Yes, I believe so. We're good, Cheyenne? Yep, awesome. Throw to you, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move the county council approve entering into the SRSDC municipally controlled corporation, including the 20-year funding commitment as outlined in the MCC agreement.
Thank you, John. Is there any discussion around that motion? Not, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move the county council direct administration to establish a reserve for the SRSDC MCC funding contributions.
Thank you, John. Is there any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. And from item 2, our CAO report, we had 1 motion arising from that. Lauren?
To proceed with the negotiations to acquire assets to allow for the future development of Westbridge County for up to $2.7 million from the tax equalization fund.
Thank you, Lauren. Is there any discussion on that motion? If not, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? That is also carried. If there is nothing further, I believe that brings us to the end of our meeting. Morris?
Move so.
Morris has moved to adjourn at 11:04 a.m. this morning.
Didn't say adjourn. Well, you know, what can I say, but the thing is, I want to keep certain things open for the chairman.
I'll call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. Thank you, everyone.